Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome, everyone, to the Hooked on Movies podcast. Today, we will be looking at the 1977 sports drama, One on One. With me are Ken.
All the way up with the red hot poker.
And Ted.
Eric, why do they have straws in their noses?
I don't know, Ted. That's a great question. And of course...
I don't know, Margot.
I don't know, Margot. And of course, I'm Eric. You know, that's really an interesting nickname you got there. Why do they call you BJ? I don't know, Margot. For all our listeners, obviously we're quoting Christmas Vacation there, a classic movie in itself. But today we're talking One on One, probably a movie that a lot of you out there have never heard of or seen or can find.
But I will say they could find it on YouTube TV and Hulu TV at the time of this recording.
And you can also pay $3 or $4 to rent it on Amazon Prime if you choose.
Because for some reason, Turner Classic Movies has decided to play this movie, which
Really?
that's a whole topic all of its own for this podcast.
Well, I would have never expected TCM to play this one, but that's...
me neither. I think somebody needs to check the quality control over at TCM.
I did see an old YouTube video where there was an ESPN reel of one of their...
I watched that.
Yeah, where they were watching that. I'm like, oh, that would have been fun to see. It's good times indeed. Well, Ted, if you can, give us the details on this movie.
Okay, One on One was directed by Lamont Johnson with a screenplay by Robbie Benson and Jerry Siegel. It has a running time of 98 minutes. It was released June 28th, 1977. It actually had a budget of $2 million, if you can believe that. And I was not able to find out anywhere what the box office gross was for this movie.
$2 million. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know
what
where
college were they using? Do you guys know?
Colorado State, I want to say.
Oh, is that what they're using as the background, Colorado State?
Yeah.
Okay.
One on One stars Robbie Benson as Henry Steele, Annette O'Toole as Janet Hayes, G.D. Spradlin as Coach Moreland, Lamont Johnson as Barry Bruns, Melanie Griffith as the Hitchhiker, Hector Morales as Gonzalez, and Corey Foucher as Tom. On Rotten Tomatoes, this has a critic score of 88%. Now, this is one of these weird places where it's not certified fresh because there's not enough critics actually reviewing the movie to make it certified fresh. And it has an audience score of 75%.
But if we're able to get on Rotten Tomatoes, we can change that.
Exactly. We can drive that score right down.
Or drive it up. You don't know. Keep listening.
So, on the positive side, we do have two of our heavy hitters actually reviewed the movie. We have Vincent Canby from the New York Times, who we've discussed before. He said it also has some good sequences that are not at all expected, including the smashing basketball game that concludes the film. Okay, Vincent. And then Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times said, the movie's concocted out of story ingredients as old as the hills, but is acted with such grace and good humor that we really care about what happens. Now, on the negative side, I was able to find one, and it was a doozy. You talk about not holding back. The staff of Variety, I guess, was forced at gunpoint to watch this movie because they had to say that this movie is a trite and disappointing little film about a Los Angeles college basketball player. It follows the formula about the underdog turned hero, but fails to ignite the emotions. Robbie Benson has an inarticulate, bumbling presence in this film as he blunders through the commercialized world of college athletics. It's unbelievable that this nebbish would be pursued by such mature and attractive women as Annette O'Toole and Gail Strickland. both of whom have extended and embarrassing romantic scenes with Benson. The staff of Variety didn't care for this movie.
Apparently not. Apparently
I think
not.
they're on the fence.
A little
Yeah.
bit, right? Could go either way here.
That's why I said I think they were held at gunpoint to make sure that they watched this movie or something.
I think you're probably not too far off there. Wow.
But don't forget, well, we've done Variety before, and they're just not sure what to think of movies half the time. Though it's kind of weird.
Well, they were
They
pretty
usually-
sure in this instance.
They
seems like
usually
it,
go
yeah.
in hard. It's
Yeah.
generally not one way or the other. It's not midway. They go hard either way. So
Yeah.
I think they just all sit in a room and say, "Who wants it? I'll take it."
they played a game of Russian roulette like it was the Deer Hunter.
Well, let's talk about the first time we've seen this movie. For me, it was 3 days ago. I didn't even know this movie existed. So luckily, I was able to sit down and watch it, and now I can talk about it with you fine people. How about you, Ted?
I saw it 3 days ago as well. I had never even heard of this movie.
You
This is
even
a whole
heard
new
of
world,
Robbie
Brandon.
Benson before this, so
So
Yeah, I
I'd
didn't even
never
know-
seen it, and Ted had never seen it, so that kind of leaves Ken to why we're watching it. Tell us about it, Ken.
I probably saw this roughly between the ages of 10 and 12. This was kind of my go-to movie when I played basketball for my middle school, and it was kind of an inspirational movie for me at that time. It made me want to work hard. You know, how people use Rocky for boxing. There was no basketball movies out there, and so this was really the only one between 82 and 84 that I could watch.
Definitely for an adolescent or a junior
Preteen.
high student, preteen, growing up in the early days, I can definitely see this as a go-to movie. You're right there, Ken. I'm with you. Well, on that note, Ken, tell us about the plot of this movie you asked us to watch.
One-on-One, the Hall & Oates story.
Thank you for saying that.
I know you appreciate that. Henry Steele is a naive high school basketball star from Colorado. He gets a 4-year guaranteed college scholarship to Western University in Los Angeles. Henry is talented, but with a tendency to improvise and showboat. Henry must overcome not only cultural transition, but also adapt to the team's win-at-all-costs philosophy from his coach. The basketball program is full with corruption by paying off its players in order to focus only on basketball. Henry finds it difficult as he is overwhelmed by the size and talent of his teammates. On the academic side, Henry is assigned a tutor, Janet Hayes, who initially disdains Henry, but eventually falls in love with him. Henry navigates through the seduction of the coach's administrative assistant, bribing a police officer, and brutal team practices. Henry is even given an upper by his roommate to help him play better, but instead makes Henry erratic. Henry's lack of success on the court results in the coach pressuring him to give up the 4-year guaranteed scholarship, but Henry refuses, making the coach furious. The coach not only benches Henry, but subjects him to unfair treatment and discipline in practice designed to make him quit. Janet continues to help Henry with his class as their romance blossoms. With the team's undefeated record in jeopardy, and them being in foul trouble, and a teammate's injury results in Henry being sent to the game by the coach. The coach instructs Henry not to touch the ball. Defying orders, Henry leads the team's comeback, makes the game-winning shot, and carried off the court in victory. Back in the coach's good graces, the coach assures Henry that his scholarship is no longer at risk. Henry then bluntly informs the coach exactly what he can do with his scholarship, as Henry believes he can now play for any college.
I'm going to play the naive card here because I'm not a real basketball fan, especially college basketball. Was this common scholarships that you could not revoke?
Yes.
No, it wasn't. I don't never remember hearing anything about that.
About guaranteed scholarships?
Yeah, guaranteed 4-year scholarships.
No.
I'd
Yeah,
never
they could
heard that
pull-
before in my life.
They could pull your scholarship anytime they wanted.
I mean, like academically, you could get it pulled, but obviously they're rigging it so you don't. But I'd never heard of that, like a guaranteed 4-year ride.
If you got hurt, they could pull your, most likely that was how you got your scholarship pulled, was you got hurt.
I know you could have your scholarship pulled, but I've also heard of guaranteed scholarships.
Well, the thing too at the end is he's pretty stupid, Henry is, because he can't go and play wherever he wants. I don't know what it was like in 1977, but as far as I can remember back paying attention to college athletics, you had to sit out a minimum of at least a year before you could play for another college.
Yeah, I don't know what it is in 77, 78. I don't know.
Now today, they have a thing called the portal that you can transfer schools and play for another school. And I don't even know if they're doing that in college basketball. That might just be a college football thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they were paying players like this, but I mean, they give him the full Eric Dickerson treatment. Like they give him a car and money.
Sounds like they give every player money, though. His roommate, who's in a star,
odd. Yeah,
his roommate who isn't a star even gets paid. What does he get paid to?
Watch the grass grow or something.
To watch that guy's car or something.
Yeah, watch the car. There's another guy who tells the guy, when the grass gets 2 inches long.
Right.
Those strange things. But I will say this: he doesn't renounce his scholarship. You have to do that in writing. So he could tell him what to do with the scholarship and still be in the program and still have the scholarship until he finds another college that he wants to go to. So that's still a possibility.
Yeah, if he does move to another school, he's going to have to sit out at least a year.
Possibly
lose a year of eligibility.
Very likely. I'm not sure how, like I said, that works in 77, but I know how it used to work. So I will lean on what you're saying because that's how I know it to be too. But I thought that was a guaranteed scholarship. There are a number of players, even when they get hurt, they finish off their schooling. So that tells me that they had at least guaranteed scholarships, or the college decides that they want to honor the scholarship because of
I find that very hard to believe, Ken.
That's at the coach's discretion. That happens all the time. At least it used to be that way.
Let's be honest, guys. Come on. Most of these athletes can't read or write to save their life. Once they get out of college and go into any type of professional sport and get injured and don't play anymore, they pretty much fall into bankruptcy.
That's not entirely true anymore. In the
even
80s,
today.
That was huge.
No.
There is a level that you have to maintain nowadays.
Come on, Ted. Seriously.
No,
you don't think these guys' level is being helped to maintain that level? Half these guys in professional sports can't even sign their own name. Come on. Seriously.
I disagree with that.
I'll disagree too.
Nope.
At least not in this day and age. But I will say this. USA Today does say that scholarships can be guaranteed for 4 years.
Okay.
They have to maintain a certain level.
Level, right? Do we think
today's
that
day and age
that Henry Steele is a believable draft by a college?
No.
From high school as a player?
I think he's good enough to be, I wouldn't say a 4-year guaranteed, but at least the 1 year guarantee, because most scholarships are guaranteed for 1 year.
Doesn't he look a little stringy and short?
He's a little small.
Yeah.
But also, look at it, it's 1977.
He looks like a midget compared to other.
Look at Muggsy Bogues in the NBA in the 80s.
There's a big misconception about Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues was still like 6'9", 6'10". Or 5'9", 5'8", 5'9". Yeah. He was not a midget. First of all, it's a horrible casting call here. Because he doesn't look like an athlete. He doesn't look like he should be on the same court as athletes. And he looks like he's literally like he's 15 years old.
He looks like me playing basketball.
Compared to somebody who's in legitimately in college.
Now, granted, he did all his own.
Miscast.
All those shots are all his own. We know he's been playing basketball since he's like out of the wound. He loves basketball, and he's actually fairly good at it. But believability compared to all the other people who are this Western University, I'm assuming, is supposed to be a top-notch school.
I'm sure it's like UCLA or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's supposed to be a top-notch school.
Completely generic.
Right, but I mean, for him to be recruited out of high school with the coach coming there to the actual, high school games and watching him play, I was like,
I think
now coaches used to back in the day. That was a regular thing. We're going to see the same thing when we do your movie, Blue Chips.
Right, but we're talking about. I don't think Robbie Benson was like the prodigy of Colorado, where the whole state is talking about him, going, man. You got to see this kid. He's the next Will Chamberlain or the next, whoever of the era.
Well, if we are saying that Western University is supposed to be It's supposed to
UCLA.
be like a UCLA type of thing. There's no way in hell that they're coming. They're recruiting him.
No,
No. He's.
Oh, I
not
agree. I
nearly
don't think
big
so.
enough.
But I think he would fit into a next tier program.
Yeah.
So, something like
Probably.
University of Colorado. They probably would give him a scholarship to come play with them. I agree
Colorado
with you.
State. Yeah.
Colorado State. I mean, I believe that he would get a scholarship there. When we do watch him play basketball, he can shoot, he can dribble, and he likes to spin the ball on his one finger. So he does know how to handle a basketball. I believe it to a certain extent, but not to the extent of going to a major program and being the face of the program. And then on top of that, being given up on halfway through the season.
And hell, the
I mean-
coach doesn't even know him when he first meets him. He completely forgets who he is.
Well,
That's not uncommon, I don't think.
But he's not like a standout draft. I'm like,
there's
oh my
so
goodness.
many things wrong with that whole thing. Let's tackle that when we talk about the coach, because if we stick with Robbie, I understand the fish out of water and you're naive to a certain extent, but his naivete is
When he
Yeah,
first hits L.A.,
it's
and
borderline
picks up
annoying.
the hitchhiker. Is it just for us to show how fucking naive he is? I mean,
Yes.
seriously. I mean,
Well,
yes, it is.
let's start off with the fact that what was the car that he ended up, because they give him a car. He can
got a
have any car he
280Z.
wants.
he got a 77
Okay, so
280Z Nissan.
All
Or
right, so
Datsun
you got
at
a-
that time.
And it's already overheating. Did he
I
not know
know.
how to drive it?
I can't
he
say
put it-
typical American car like I want to.
He said that he put water in the oil spot.
He
instead
shouldn't have
of-
needed to do that if it was a brand new car.
No, it was
ridiculousness.
the
That's what he
wording
said,
and
though.
the acting. I know the wording and the acting for that. And obviously the radiator blew or he blew a hose or something. But the way he worded, he didn't know what the hell he did.
Yeah, don't forget, this was 3 or 4 months later that he's driving the car to school. It's not
So?
that day that he
It
gets
shouldn't
the
have.
car.
It shouldn't have blown
No, but if
anything
you-
at that point.
If you put wrong gas in the gas tank, I don't care how new the car is, it's going to
well,
make
then
some
he's
problems.
even then you if you're that's what you're saying. He's even dumber than what.
Well,
Yeah.
he's not
We're
doing
giving him
that,
credit
but
for.
he thinks that he's putting water in the radiator, but he's putting it in the oil line. I don't know.
Why
He
should
shouldn't
he
be
put-
doing-
He shouldn't
he
be
shouldn't be
putting
doing
water
anyway.
in anything.
I
Yes,
agree
he shouldn't
with
even
you
be
on that.
touching the engine at that point.
Right. This whole scene with the hitchhiker is completely stupid.
It doesn't even look like Melanie Griffith. I didn't even know. I mean,
I didn't
was like,
know it was
It sounded
Melanie
like her,
Griffith.
though.
The first thing he says to her is, "I don't usually deface public property."
Right,
He ripped a page out of the phone book. Come on, man.
Okay,
It's-
he is sheltered.
He's
he
an
is sheltered.
idiot.
He can't even go across the street to play with kids because his dad won't let him. You saw at the beginning of the film, he's looking at the kids playing soccer. He wants to join them, but his dad won't let him. His dad is all about basketball. In fact, I wish there was more of that father dynamic there.
No,
that pressure.
I'm so glad that there's not, because his mom and dad, they're actually worse than he is. It's horrid. His dad tries to quote Bear Bryant and says, "You gotta go with the date that you
the
brought
date
to
that
the
brought-
prom." Bear Bryant never said any of that shit. Where they're pulling these quotes from?
But did you hear his son? His son said that he didn't say that.
Yeah.
It came from another person.
don't you
So-
talk back to me, boy.
But you know what? That's common. That I knew a lot of people in school that had their dad that pressured them to just play sports and wanted
I
to be
did too,
that.
and they never acted like this goober.
Oh, I've met worse than this goober.
Oh yeah, me too.
Right off the bat, I just found it very hard to believe. Just the coach's reaction when he was at the high school watching him. First off, I didn't know who the hell he was, first off. And then, all of a sudden, this kid's being recruited by Western University, given a car, given cash, given all this stuff to get out there. And I'm like, kid doesn't look that good. I couldn't believe it. I thought when he got out to Western University that school would be kissing his ass.
No,
But
it was just
in
one of many.
reality, it's like he's just another drone in the
Another
in the
cog
player
in the machine.
pool. Yeah, cog in the machine there.
That's why I understand where Ted's coming from with the 4-year. He's not good enough for a 4-year. He's good enough for a scholarship, I think, but not a guaranteed car, all that good stuff. He's lucky to get a scholarship to a big college like that. Here's the thing. It would have been better if they would have had meaning in the game. Like the coach is there watching the state championship. Like
Right.
if they set that up to be the state championship.
And not playing in a CYO gym.
Right. He's doing this stuff to win his team the state title. then yes, then you're talking about that big scholarship because, hey, it doesn't matter. Even in any state, winning the state championship is a big thing. But they do a good job of later on. Henry has problems with seeing
Everything.
the size of these other players and their talent.
Because he's like 15 years old.
But it's realistic. He comes and he sees that he's a fish out of water, not just culturally, but physically. He knows that he has to do something special, and all that pressure on him is the reason why he struggles. He tries to impress, like they have the one-on-one drill to go down the court against the other defender, and he loses the ball. It's because he's trying to be fancy. He's trying to do something special to show the coach because he knows he lacks size and possibly even talent, and he's trying to prove to himself and the coach that he can do it. And he's failing miserably because he doesn't know what to do. I think they
I'm
played
just
that off
saying,
very well.
If this is a top-notch college, they've got their pick of people all over the United States. Why do they pick him? He's a complete fish out of water.
The only thing I think of is in the 70s, maybe it's more regional. Back in the 70s and 80s, and I would say even up to early 90s, there was a lot of regional scouting. But a head coach usually wouldn't go out too far to scout a player unless the greatest thing since Shaquille O'Neal.
Your big college programs, UCLA, Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, they recruited all over the country.
But they have scouts.
Right. They've got the payroll to put scouts out there, do the legwork. Even in the 70s, the same thing. I just found it odd that the head coach of this major university is in Nowhere, Colorado, finding this kid and then offering him the world to come. Right off the bat, it just seemed so far-fetched. Like if he wasn't like in a state school, if this was like instead of going out to Western in Los Angeles, where he was going to some made-up state school in Colorado, it would make more sense.
Right. And it would make more sense if this was still L.A., but not a UCLA, USC type of program.
Right.
And that they're not undefeated, that their goals are to be an undefeated team, and you have Notre Dame on your schedule and things of that nature. They played up too much in that
That's
aspect.
where the $2 million went. They had to pay to use the name.
Oh, Notre Dame's. The one
Pay to
college
play.
that actually was real that they put in there? Yeah.
Oh, you mean them playing Tech wasn't real?
It loses its credibility when he lines up with everybody and they do the panning shot across the guys are on the end line and everybody else's head is cut out of the picture because they're showing how small he is compared to everybody else. It makes it ridiculous.
But just because they have a higher size doesn't mean that they're better basketball players. Just because they have 5 inches on them or 5 or 6 inches on them doesn't mean
And
that
Tom proves that because he's a moron.
Tom comes from a school that he's the only one that can dribble the ball.
Well,
that tells you the recruiting of this particular basketball program.
We're not talking about UCLA.
No, we can't be. Now thinking of this is not a UCLA or a USC program. This is a program that has one major school on their schedule, and that's Notre Dame. And everything else is kind of the mid-tier type of teams. Because they get really excited when they're on TV. They probably have never been on TV before. And they got CBS Sports handling the game at the end. And he goes off on his players because they're playing for the TV. It sounds like this is the first time that they've ever been on TV.
Makes
They're
sense.
Like a Division 2 or Division 3 school in comparison.
Maybe we're thinking this is a higher program when in fact it really isn't.
I guess one of my major problems here is, as far as things that circulate around the Robbie character, is the absolute ridiculousness of his naivete. I mean, we talked about the hitchhiker, which is a thing that didn't even need to be in the movie. Everything that happens to him is a cliche to prove just how big of a goober he really is. This is also on Robbie Benson, too. He plays this character like he's a step above Forrest Gump as far as the intelligent quotient goes. He doesn't come off bright until there's a point in the movie where everything changes. But before then, he acts like a moron. He just comes off so goofy. He has the little at the end of everything that he says. He just gets himself into situations. It's like an after-school special.
Definitely has that feel.
Like he gets peer pressured. Because Ken, you'd mentioned in the plot, one player gives him, I guess, what is supposed to be an upper. It's probably just a diet pill.
Some type of amphetamine.
And all of a sudden he starts acting like he's done 4 bumps of cocaine. He way overplays it. He's acting like an idiot. Everything is overplayed. The dialogue that he gives himself, because Robbie Benson helped write this movie.
Yes, he did.
It's very amateurish. His roommate, Tom, who looks like he's about 30 years older than he is, takes him to this college party. It's one gigantic after-school special wrapped up into a 2.5 minute period. He walks in, and the moment he walks in, he says the line that I said at the beginning of the podcast, "Oh, why do those people have straws in their noses?" So immediately we walk into this party, and immediately we set the tone for exactly the foolishness that's going on here. And then he immediately then is introduced to the jocks who are too cool. One's smoking weed, and he acts like he's higher than Spicoli ever was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And he's like, ugh. And then there's guys doing some sort of a seance at the dinner table. And there's a girl that's bulimic in the bathroom. And then another girl who, I don't know exactly what she's doing, but she's acting like she's having an orgasm on the bed. And so I'm thinking she's either doing ecstasy or she's doing LSD.
If it's 77, they're not doing ecstasy. She's tripping on something.
And
Yeah.
it is one thing after another. And then, of course, the final cliche, this assistant to the coach is at the college party, and she is drunk as a skunk, and she tries to hit on this kid, and it's creepy as hell because he looks like he's 15. It's just weird.
Drinking the Coke doesn't help either.
Oh, I'm drinking a Coke.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he says.
It is a very naive, obviously a kid who, like you said, has been sheltered, coming into this Southern California, Hollywood, LA lifestyle of a quote-unquote big-name college. I mean, if you think of Dazed and Confused, movies like that, where they're just going to town at some of these parties, it's a little bit more realistic in a movie of that style. But I know it's got a PG rating. There's not really too much you can do with it, but you're right. It does have that after-school kind of feel, and I know what they were thinking, but it comes across so bad and dated right now. Seals and Croft should not have done the music for this movie.
That's going to be a whole thing. We're going to go over the music.
The segues with Seals and Croft playing, I'm like, oh my, this literally is an after-school special.
Because I have some thoughts about the music, but I want to get back to Henry's character real quick. And I think I understand some of the things that Ted doesn't like that I think could be explained. For instance, the nervous laugh. He is a fish out of water. Of course he's going to have a nervous laugh. That happens. And the reason why it flipped around in the second half is he's no longer nervous. He's no longer that fish out of water. He's experienced life in those first 4 or 5 months.
That's one way to put it, pal. That's one way to put it.
Ted, I don't know what life you have ever lived here, because it sounds like...
No. You know what happens? You
tell me what happens when when you show up place that you've never been before and don't know anybody, and how do you react? Just like you are right now?
I never acted like that.
I did. That's why I like this character.
There's a moment in this character that he completely changes, and it's when he gets laid for the first time. He's a completely different character.
And so he should be.
But it's so drastic.
It's not drastic.
Yes, it is.
How is it drastic? What does he do differently?
He acts like a regular human being and not a moron.
So he loses the nervous laugh?
No, it's his entire demeanor. There's two things that happen that change the character, and it makes him into an entirely new character. And it's after the coach has the goon beat him up.
Right.
And the one-on-one drill. And then Annette O'Toole's character actually says that she loves him. After those two things happen, he's an entirely different character.
No, completely wrong.
I mean, it's like they're two completely different characters.
Nope, completely wrong. And here's why I think you're wrong on this. It's not just those couple of things. He's also berated by her boyfriend at the time. Even by her, they give him a hard time, call him stupid, make fun of them. The coaches are giving him a hard time. Nobody is being nice to this guy. And it's over and over again. It's just not two things that happen to him. It's consistently things that are happening to him, and he's experiencing a lot in a 4 or 5 month period of time. Basketball season starts in November. He's already had a couple months here where he's already getting a hard time by everybody around him. And he's not used to any of this. So, of course, he's going to be nervous at first. But then he's going to get comfortable. and then he's going to get his ass beat. He's going to finally have sex with a woman for the first time, fall in love. That's going to change you because you want to fight for those type of things.
It doesn't turn you into a new person.
He's not totally a new person. He's just, he isn't. He just works harder. He stands up to her boyfriend before they have sex.
That's true.
He stands up to her when she gives him a hard time. He says, I'm not going to take any more credit from you. So it's not like he automatically has sex and all of a sudden has a backbone. He has a backbone. He's just naive. It reminds me a little bit of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, believe it or not, where were talking about Jimmy Stewart's character. Like you were saying before, he's naive, he's crazy, and then all of a sudden he's knocking out newspaper guys because he doesn't want to be made fun of. And he's just standing up for himself. So I'm going to disagree with you. I think he's a character that grows, and it's not instantaneously. He's been through a lot. He's getting hit on by the assistant, who I guess slept with another player the season before. I guess their star center, and he played 30 minutes and got 2 points, but they said he was as happy as a lark. I like his character. I think his performance is uneven. I agree with you guys about the writing. I think it's somewhat amateurish because I think he tries to put too much in there. And as far as the scene, like at the party, 3 of those things I saw at a party when I went, and that was
all the same party.
All the same party. 3 of the same things: bulimic girl and doing drugs, and a girl trying to take you home that was older. Now I never saw
Middle
somebody
age?
having like
Really?
10 years older than everybody else.
Not middle age though.
It was a weak party.
We look at Say Anything, and we saw the student counselor show up to that party.
That she did, but she looked like she was like right out of.
And that was
college.
a high school party. And that was a high school
Cheers.
party.
What are you talking about?
But she was like right out of college. But this assistant, she's
Seasoned?
She's seasoned. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
And they're trying to get him laid. They're trying to get him to take her home because they know that she will have sex.
Or
with
are they
him.
trying to get rid of him because he's so?
No, they're trying to get him laid. People at the party are not mean to him.
If anything, the players are on his
true.
side. Yeah, the players are definitely on. Throughout the whole movie, the players are really on his side.
I don't know if they're on his side. I think his roommate is, and I think everybody else is just kind of like bystanders.
Well, they do try to. I will say this. This is one thing that they did get right. The team is behind him.
Yeah.
Because they're all really kind of ticked off when he gets beat up by the goon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody kind of wants to take a shot at this over-muscular NFL player who's legitimately an NFL player.
Now, he's somebody who's older than everybody else.
They legitimately take umbrage to him. As awkward as it is, his and Tom's relationship, it's awkward because of the apparent age difference. I don't know how big of a difference there was, but they look like they're in 2 different decades. But they actually have a nice relationship. I think it's a decent relationship.
He's his drug supplier. So.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's a whole nother thing, the peer pressure and whatever. But to get to something that's done halfway decent is his relationship with Annette O'Toole. Now, granted, she's supposedly a grad student, which makes her considerably older than
a few years at least.
Well, she'd probably be about 5 years older than him at the minimum.
But she couldn't be a senior?
No, not a grad student.
Did they say she was a grad student?
Yeah. She was a teacher's aide, TA.
Yeah, she's a TA. Yeah. So, yeah, she would have had to have graduated already. Because she's the TA to the jerk professor.
Right, so she's not in school anymore.
The hippie.
She's the hippie, yeah. The hippie.
Oh, yeah, he's not a hippie. He's just an idiot.
Y'all smell like.
There are parts of their relationship that I like, even though some of it doesn't feel earned. And this is a writing problem. This is not necessarily an acting problem, because I actually think that their scenes together are probably some of the best acted scenes in the movie. It's a writing problem because she goes from bad talking him, giving him a hard time and everything like that, and not really wanting anything to do with him, to she sticks up for him against her boyfriend / professor is really kind of weird, and then all of a sudden she loves him. This doesn't happen very often in this podcast, but I'm going to use a Kenism. And I'm going to say,
Kenism. All right.
Yes, we need more backstory. There needs to be a little. There needs to be more that this is earned. It just kind of jumps. It's a kind of an awkward jump. It's like, okay, so I guess they're a thing now, which is fine because they should be together. They're obviously the 2 main stars of the movie, but it's just kind of like, oh, how did we get there? It's kind of like we jumped over something.
I didn't see the jump over. I saw right at the beginning, she opens the door and she's right off the bat attracted to him.
Really?
She looks, yeah, she looks at him and she's like, wow, this is a cute guy.
I don't know.
She does that. I've seen this film enough to see that. And then she's impressed by him, not at that first meeting, but when he does read Moby Dick. She finds him different than the other jocks.
That's true. I will give you that.
The only thing I think they needed to add in here for that kinism that you're talking about, Ted, is a disagreement between her and the professor, as far as like he thinks it's beneath her to tutor other students or jocks or something like that. They keep on fighting about those type of things. Just to kind of abruptly end right there and then, it's kind of that doesn't work for me. But I don't have a problem with her defending him because that professor is picking a fight with him. And she's trying to do her best to calm the situation down. Because I think the respect from him reading the books, and he's trying hard to study. She's appreciating, but she's appreciating that, and she doesn't think he's the typical jock that she's dealt with all this time. But her boyfriend won't give him a break, and so she had to pick a side during that fight. Now,
he's a pretty shitty teacher.
He must be, in order to treat someone like that. I see the progression. I think it needed a little bit more seasoning, but I don't think it jumped from 0 to 50 just like that.
Not to 50, maybe to 25 or 30. It seemed very rushed. It is what it is. Like I said, once they get there, I like what they do. It's the getting there part that was kind of awkward.
And Annette O'Toole is like my first crush on a adult.
Oh, when I was a kid. I could definitely see that. I mean, by any era standards, she's very pretty.
And this helped her jump into other things. This role actually got her seen by more people. She never wanted that big career, but allowed her to be a candidate for a lot of roles throughout her life, including the TV movie It.
Yeah. She's also married to Michael McKean.
Is she?
From
Spinal Tap, from everything. Yeah, Michael McKean.
Yeah. And he was in most recently the Better Call Saul series.
Used Cars. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Really great actor.
So what are our thoughts about the coach?
Where do you want to start? The fact that he preaches basketball like he's a priest/minister has some weird sort of thing where he has to be above all the players as he's giving them some sort of a talk, or the fact that the game in 1977 had passed him by at least 10 years. Because I guess he never saw Bob Cousy play. Where do you want to start? Because he's outdated for 1977 basketball. We're going to be talking about Hoosiers. He's trying to teach college basketball in 1977 like Norman Dale did in Hoosiers. And the game is completely different in 1977 than what this coach is preaching. Even the assistant coach, this is one of the things that literally my blood started to boil, is when he starts, I can't watch this hot dog stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And then the other coach is like, there's a hot dogs, blah, blah, blah. One, that is thinly disguised language and dog whistle sort of stuff. And the second is, no, it's not, because you're preaching a style of the game that has passed you by at least 15 years.
Here's my problem with this, though, and I agree with you to a certain extent. You scouted him. You knew the type of player he was, what type of shots he's taking, the passes that he's making. Why are you all of a sudden upset with him for being any different than what you scouted?
That was the first note that I took when I watched the movie for the first time. That was the first note I wrote down. Why are you even recruiting him if you've seen him and you were quote-unquote impressed enough to give him this scholarship, and now you're shocked by the way he plays the game? Which is the way the game was being played at the time. Because here's the thing, Bob Cousy and players like him changed the game.
And this might be the problem of having a 21-year-old write the film, is that he doesn't know enough about the game to understand what's going on here. Now, the coach, let's just say he was doing those type of things that he was recruited for, but then he was making lots of mistakes. Lots of turnovers, missing all these shots.
Right.
He, all of a sudden, the pressure was just too much on him. Then I understand why the coach does what he does. In fact, there's part of me, if we take out the fact that what we just said about the recruiting thing, and let's just say he just sucks for suck's sake, I
Just
understand.
sucks for suck's sake. I like
Yeah.
that.
I understand why the coach tries to pull the scholarship and why he does what he does to a certain extent. I don't want him beating him up, but like the push-ups and the sit-ups and the running and things of that nature, it's kind of understandable. You didn't live up to what you were supposed to be. We want to get rid of your scholarship. You're saying, no, we're going to make it a little bit harder on you. I actually understand why the coach did what he did.
He didn't even mess up in a game.
Not that we know of. We watch game film. We only see the hot dog act, which we have no problem with because I think it's like a reverse layup or something.
Was he even in that clip that they were watching?
Yeah, he was in the clip that they were watching.
So,
yeah.
you know,
There's only one clip we see. It's him reverse layupping, and they're calling it hot dogging. And then we're led to believe that the reason that they're getting rid of him is because he's a hot dog. But then they're really getting rid of him because he's not playing well. Which one is it?
Right.
And then you have the coach's administrative assistant say, well, maybe he needs seasoning.
Why is she in this meeting?
Why is she in this meeting? Right.
We know why
she's scouting.
Here's the other thing. This is another reason why this is not a big name school. You only have one coach in the room with you. One assistant coach.
Yeah.
If this is
I think that's
UCLA
just a
or
failure of writing too.
again, I think there's limitations on a 21-year-old writing this film. Even if it was with his dad.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you guys know about real college basketball? And I think they hit some things really on the head. For a 21-year-old, this is not a bad first outing as far as the writing goes. Not bad for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, if you were making a student film.
There are things that he does very well here. I do think the training is very accurate. I think all the drills that they're doing is drills that you would have seen in 1977.
Oh, yeah. I remember doing the fire feet and stuff like that. I never remembered doing the mirror drill, though.
Yeah, I remember doing the mirror drill. I never got to play with one of those ball things that you get to throw in.
Yeah, what the hell's up with that?
I've never seen
Kind
it.
of cool, wasn't it?
I want to play with that now. That's pretty awesome.
But I think all the stuff that they have them go through is legitimate. And that's what I liked about this movie as a kid and why I still like it now is because I do think it has a Rudy-like type of quality to it where he has to work extremely hard to get where he needs to be. And we see that dedication. And that's why I give him a pass on this writing thing is because there are aspects of the film that I really do appreciate.
He doesn't earn the punishment. If he was mouthing off back to the coach, then I could see him, run the stadium steps. He doesn't mouth off to the coach. He doesn't.
Not until after he runs the steps. Then he does mouth
right.
off.
Well, yeah, because at that point he has to stick up for himself.
You got no other choice.
You as a viewer, you need him to stick up for himself. Otherwise, you just lose all interest in the character. He's done nothing to earn this treatment from the coach, and that's a major part of the problem that I have here. But
he does.
The coach,
He does earn it.
He's a jackwagon.
No, the coach goes hardcore, way too hardcore.
He goes way hardcore, but at the same time, I don't think this coach has ever been told no before by a player.
Probably not. No.
Even in
he asked him
in 1977, had a coach done to Henry what this coach does by having that guy beat him up on the court, he would have been fired.
It depends. I mean, we still have Bob Knight doing this by the end of the 80s in Indiana.
Bob Knight never had brought a football player in to beat up a kid on the court. Bob Knight
he did it himself.
Choked a kid. Right. He
does it himself, and he doesn't get fired. It took so many times until Bob Knight got. And I don't know if they're trying to play this off as him being a Bob Knight coach. I don't see it.
In 1977, he had just come off the first undefeated season with Indiana. So the story had not been fully written on Bob Knight yet. When we talk about Eric's choice, Blue Chips, that's going to be more of your Bob Knight.
Who the coach is in.
Chips.
I understand to a certain extent why he does to the player what he does. It's excessive, but at the same time, maybe there's an unwritten rule that if your coach tells you that you have to turn in your scholarship, that you turn in your scholarship. And I think that comes to that problem that we had at the beginning of this conversation, that no scholarships should be guaranteed.
But does the coach have the authority to do that? The coach isn't paying for the scholarship. That seems more of an administrative.
He's probably got a budget. I mean, he does say that they can't afford his scholarship, that they probably only have a certain amount of money in their scholarship fund. A big chunk of it is going to this kid. then they don't have a way to get another scholarship on
Then
another
why the hell did
prospect
they
later on.
draft him?
You're only allotted so many scholarships. It should never have come to this craziness that he's asked to give his scholarship back. Because what normal, regular-minded human being is going to give back their scholarship? The way it should have been is the coach calls him in and says, I'm pulling your scholarship. But then we don't have a second half of the movie.
Maybe that's where
honest.
the switch happens for you, Ted. It's not him getting laid. It's his scholarship being threatened because he says no.
That's one of the things that there is a change after that he does that. So, yeah, I mean...
He's seen his life go downhill very quickly at that point.
You know who I hate actually more than the coach?
The assistant
Is
coach.
the assistant coach.
Yeah.
Maybe Henry shouldn't have went off on the coach. Maybe he should have just decked the assistant coach.
When he was being the referee
Right,
in that one-on-one
right.
game. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I think we're being a little bit hard on certain things because other sport movies try to do this, and we're going to look at a couple more, like Hoosiers, which is high school basketball, and it's not college, so it's different circumstances. I think this is more comparable to the program meets Blue Chips in a way.
Well, I want to get to that. It's what we can say that other movies that have done the same sort of thing better.
But not before. I need a movie that does it better before.
Because there really isn't anything before this.
Are you
Sports
talking
movies
basketball
were-
or any sport?
When was North Dallas 40? When did
I
it
think that
come
was
out?
77, 78. That's right
You
around
know,
this time.
And you also had The Longest Yard.
That's a prison movie.
Yeah, but he was a professional
North
athlete.
Dallas 40 is 1979.
79.
So this
All
is
right.
before then. There really isn't anything that really tackles the pay for play in college
College sports.
athletics.
And North Dallas 40 is a pro
That's
one,
about the Cowboys. Yeah, it's about the Dallas Cowboys.
which are still having that problem.
As far as like just a movie that tackles like the seedier side of athletics, you really don't have that comes directly off my mind. It does tell a little bit of a compelling story. It's just
Yeah, the writing is weak. We can say that. But the structure of the story is very strong. Where if you got some better writers in there, maybe you got some bigger names, this could have been a really, really good movie.
I don't really even buy some of the basketball sequences because here again,
They look very
Robbie
high
Benson-
schoolish, don't they?
well, there's that, but Robbie Benson is still too small.
I just don't agree because I think it does look legit, especially the last game. I think they pull off that game very well, and we're going to compare that later on to Blue Chips. But I do think that the basketball play is realistic. I mean, he makes these jump shots. I think it's very college-like. I really do.
Granted, there isn't the cuts. What typically happens in a sports movie like this is you see the star attempt a shot, and then it cuts away to the shot going through the hoop.
Right.
That's usually how it goes. So he did have to make some shots. I don't doubt that. I'm just saying even seasoned directors have a hard time recreating actual play. I don't buy it, and because I don't know if it's because they're not real athletes. At least in some other movies, they bring in real athletes to.
Actually, most of the players out there are from the Colorado State University players.
Well, then that makes it even worse because that means that Robbie Benson really was that small. It wasn't just a ploy for the movie. So that means what we have is a situation like we had in Rocky III, where you have Carl Weathers faking a run against Sylvester Stallone to make it look like that he's
How did you
keeping...
bring that into this conversation?
Well, that means you have real athletes out there on the court that are allowing this pipsqueak to run around and make shots on him. It makes it awkward.
Wait till we get to Hoosiers and you get the little small fry that tries to play basketball and somehow he wins a game for the team.
He's in high school. It's completely different, and
But
it's
he
also
wins the
set.
game
What is
for the
it?
team.
It's set in the 1930s. I mean,
50s, I think.
Completely different type of a deal.
It'd be nice to know what his real height was. I mean, he supposedly dunks the ball.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. If he legitimately dunked the ball and didn't have any help, he must be able to jump high.
Let's just say he's 5'10". That's a legitimate starting guard in college back in the 1970s. Pro athletes 5'8" to 6 foot are making pro teams. I'm going to buy that he is legit, but I think it is borderline just because we just don't know how tall he really is. I think his teammate is 6'4".
And he's about
a head shorter.
A head shorter than him,
Little-
so that
little
would
less
put him
than
at
a head
about
shorter.
5'9",
So-
5'10".
So I would buy 5'10" as a starter in college. But
And
yeah,
he's small. And see, that's the other thing too. If
He's
he
small, but
wasn't
he's
so-
muscular. If when you watch him work out, he's
Yeah,
He
he's got a
gets
six
muscular.
pack. He's getting
he
there.
gets muscular. Starting out, he's linguini, and all of a sudden he gets punished, and
he
all of a
gets the
sudden
rock. He gets the rock.
he turns in. He's got muscle, and then all of a sudden, Annette Toole's like all over him because he's all of a
His
sudden
teammate was providing him some more pills.
yeah, steroids. That's the one cliche we didn't.
There you
get.
go. A little bit longer, he would have had it.
But yeah, let's talk about the music here.
All right, I want to say one thing before we start with this music. Did you know that Warner Brothers tried to get Robbie Benson to accept the Eagles as the music for the film? But to have the Eagles, they would have to kind of recut
Change
the film.
the script.
And Robbie Benson, I guess, had enough power to veto the Eagles.
No.
Yes.
You mean the Eagles were actually on board?
Yes.
Wow.
To do the music for this movie?
Yes.
So they went with Seals and Croft.
So what you're saying is Robbie Benson, the real-life human being, is as dumb as Henry is at the beginning of the movie.
At least for the music, yes.
Okay.
I agree
Just-
with you. The music is a hard swallow.
Oh, that's putting it lightly. The stuff
Even
that's
BJ
not,
can't do that.
the best music in the movie is Seals and Croft. That means you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. The bumper music between scenes and stuff, it's 70s porn music. It's
It
horrible.
reminds me of 3 Days of the Condor music.
How about the music at
worse.
the party, too? The music at the party
Oh
is
my
that
God.
generic, like, yeah,
Yes.
beautiful.
And
It is horrid.
And the weird thing, during the basketball, towards the end, when he makes the game-winning shot and everything, there's nothing.
Silence.
It's really
It is
weird.
weird.
It's not drowned out by crowd noise. It needs to be drowned out by crowd noise, or
there's
there
no
needs to be
crowd
music.
there.
Oh
Right,
no, they
and-
had a big crowd there. In fact, they paid people to be there for 3 days.
One of the sound effect things that really, it just drives me nuts, when he bounces the ball and it goes, it sounds like he's bouncing it like 15 times. I hated that. But the music here is god awful.
The only
It's worse than Go Tootsie Go.
The only time I like the music, it reminds me of one of my favorite scenes of the movie, actually, is when he walks into the stadium for the first time, the court, and he turns on
hated
all the
that
lights.
scene.
I liked the music there. Outside of that, I agree with you. It's pretty bad.
And I love your 70s cheesy music, and even I'm
Yes,
like,
you did.
This is
Yeah,
not
you do.
good.
It's horrid. I
When
mean,
we were talking
It-
early in the week, Eric's like, Seals or Crofts? I love them. Let's
I'm
do it.
in. Yeah, but this did not work. And this song got to number 18 on the Hot 100. in
Written by Paul
77.
Williams. And Paul
Yeah,
Williams was a big
yeah.
writer at the time.
You had a little bit of 70s cheese muscle behind it on the music, but to ditch the Eagles, wow.
Eric, do you know who really loves this movie?
You?
Burt Reynolds.
Yes, I did see that.
does he really?
Yes,
Burt
he
Reynolds
does.
loves this movie. Well, Robbie Benson also directed a few episodes of Evening Shade, which I
Yes, he
believe
did.
was a Burt
And some
Reynolds
episodes
sitcom.
of Friends. Well, Burt Reynolds and his hairpiece loves this movie.
Do we want to talk about this administrative assistant, or we talked about her enough?
BJ?
BJ.
What more can we really say about her? She likes the boys.
She does like the boys, that's for
Does
sure.
like the boys.
It's the only thing that I have to say about her is however they were able to work her outfit at the quote unquote the party, where she's wearing something that ties in the front and it barely ties in the front.
Mhm.
The fact that they were able to keep this PG and that she wasn't falling out of this particular top, that is the best work of magic in the entire movie.
Even if it did, it would have still been PG. You
There's
could
a
have
good
nudity
chance
and-
you would have been PG, right?
Yeah,
right.
you could have nudity
It's
until the mid-80s
crazy.
and
Yeah.
be PG.
The fact that we didn't see a lot more is shocking.
I think they tried to make this a little bit, well, I would say a little family friendly, but there's some language in it, some sexual
Well,
innuendos
that girl
here.
on the bed over there, right there, should probably eliminate the family friendly in the 1970s.
You would think, right? And that's one of my big complaints is I don't know what they were going for. Were they really
it's
going
after
for
school special stuff.
a major Warner Brothers release? I mean, it didn't get a lot of theater play, did it?
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
And we couldn't find any box office returns on it. And this is
And-
not going to straight to video market either.
And
at that,
no,
in
Roger Ebert,
1977.
Roger Ebert even said in his review, if you can find it, see it.
So limited
So-
release. But why would you
Yeah.
pay $2 million on a film that you're just going to limited release it?
I don't know. It
I
just
don't know how
seems
they got
odd.
$2 million to greenlight this.
Well, after
It's
Ode to Billy
shocking.
Joe, Robbie Benson shot up as a teen idol after that movie.
Yeah, then he did Ice Castles, ice skating movie. Very odd,
Yeah.
but he
Running
was
Brave,
Running Brave. Yeah,
the-
in what
the,
82, I think.
the Indian who wins the 1968 gold medal for running, Bobby Mills. Yes,
It's he did have a little.
it's a
bit
good
of play.
movie, but him playing an American Indian, yeah. But you guys should check it out. But it's
He's
a good movie.
literally the whitest human being known to man.
Pretty close to it, man. Yeah.
Okay, so we have this movie that talks about all these really interesting things. In the movie that came to mind that I would find that's comparable, but not nearly as fun bad, is Varsity Blues, where you have the coach that's an overbearing piece of garbage, and the player kind of just rises up against him. That's the movie that came to mind.
But again, high school
That's
versus
high school.
And
college.
it's a bigger budget too. It's
Yeah,
definitely
much bigger
more of a
budget.
pro
Oh, yeah,
movie.
with
James
bigger
Vanderbeek.
stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, James Vanderbeek, probably his salary for Varsity Blues was probably more than the budget of One-on-One.
Well, you also had John Voight. Wasn't he the head
John
coach
Voight,
in that movie?
Yeah.
So he probably got $2 million just to say a couple lines and yell at some kids. I think this movie tried to tackle something that it wasn't ready to tackle and did the best it could. There's some things that I really appreciate about this movie, and I think, I have some bias because this was dear to me when I was a kid. And most movies that are dear to me as a kid kind of continue on throughout my adult life, unlike you guys who movies that you love as a kid die because
Goonies. Yeah.
because you lose that little
E.T.
kid in you. So
That's right. We grow up.
I really don't want to take a dump on. You make me feel bad that.
But the nice
How I feel
thing
about the movie.
is that me and Ted don't have those biases. Where the only bias we have is it's clearly an out of date movie. Nothing you
I
can
think
do
it
about
does
that.
hurt that you're reviewing it in 2023 compared
does.
to
It does.
1977
Oh, by-
when Roger
by
Ebert
far.
reviewed it. So
Right.
Roger
I
Ebert,
understand that.
and that's why I'm saying I think it's a cutting edge movie to a certain extent at this time because of the subject matter that it's tackling.
Subject matter, I will give you, yes. Revolutionary. Can't think of anything that was done before. They could have done a lot more with it. So why don't we just go into our reviews? Ted, kick us off.
This is not a hard one for me to review or give a grade on. The writing is amateurish. It's barely passable. Very little of the dialogue seems natural. A lot of it doesn't seem like how real humans talk to each other. It just seems very like a person just coming out of high school or a college freshman would have written this particular type of a script. The subject matter does save it a little bit because, like we've kind of touched on, really hadn't been done or that we can put our finger on having it been done before. But even then, some of the details, I think a more well-researched script writer would have been able to get some of the details more correct. The one part about the movie I really did like was the Annette O'Toole and Robbie Benson scenes. The love part was actually done fairly well. That's the part of the movie that I enjoyed. The rest of it, I liked the basketball sequences. Even though I'd think that they're kind of awkward. I hated the coach. There's too many holes in that particular part of the story. And then the music on top of everything it just takes me out of the entire movie experience. This is a movie I won't watch again unless Ken puts it on and has me handcuffed to a couch somewhere.
Does that frequently happen between you guys?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm usually
Just
fast
once in
enough
a while.
to get away.
Yeah.
So this movie for me is going to be a D+. The reason that it's not worse is because I did like the Annette O'Toole sequences, and there were parts that were fun bad. But other than that, I just don't see this movie. It's way too amateur. It's a step above an after-school special.
I'll piggyback on Ted's review there. I think the movie is clearly very amateurish. It is a step above an after-school special. I think the subject matter is actually quite good, very revolutionary for the time. So much more could have been done with this. So much more. But that would probably involve Robbie Benson not being in the movie, which I think is probably an improvement, because I don't think Robbie Benson is a very good actor in this movie. I'm not sure about any of the other stuff he's been in, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. But in this movie, I think he is one of the weakest links in the movie. Annette O'Toole is a shining bright spot. She is very good in this. She definitely makes him a better actor with the chemistry between them. The basketball seem pretty sterile, pretty generic, pretty weak. I'm not a real basketball fan, but even I can see this doesn't look like a college team. And I know, Ken, you said that these are actually, Colorado State players?
I mean, that's what it said, that they were the extras from the team.
Yeah.
Was actually in the
extras. Oh, second and third string players. That makes a little bit more sense. Didn't have that flair. It just seemed like it was just put together very poorly. I know Robbie Benson wrote the movie and maybe should have had a little help besides his father, but the movie definitely had a lot of holes in it. For me, I'm not going to go D+. I think that's going a little low, but it's a C-. And hell, maybe I'm being generous there, but it's a C-. And like Ted, I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again either. And if I do, I can't think of the circumstances. Ken, take us home. Something tells me you're going to like it a little bit better than we did.
Something tells me the same thing.
Yeah.
I already said that this is a movie that is a favorite of mine from my childhood. The training aspects in the basketball movie is what I think draws me to this movie. It makes you realize what somebody has to really go through to be a high school, college athlete. You work hard, and you got the drills. It's not as easy as just being gifted in shooting a basketball. Henry's supposed to be gifted, but the work is hard. He realizes that players that he's going up against, and players that are even on his own team, are probably better than him, at least at first. And I appreciate the work ethic. It has that kind of Rocky feel, that Karate Kid type of feel. I'm not saying that this movie is on that level, because it's not. But it has some of that feel because the odds are against him. He is a small little runt who has to overcome a lot of difficulties with his play, with his love life, with his schoolwork, with his social life. All that is kind of a challenge for him. I can relate to that. I went to a Christian school until I was in high school, and I didn't know anything when I got to high school. And even by the time I got out of high school, there were still things that I was uneasy about. I struggled with relating to people because they had done drugs or they drank all the time or smoked or whatever the case may be. And I never did any of that before I was 21. I might have drank once before I was 21. And so I relate with this character because I would have been scared too. Don't have that nervous laugh that he has in this movie. I like the romance in this movie. Annette O'Toole is one of my favorite actresses, especially when I was younger. I had a crush on her. Still kind of have a crush on her. She is a very gifted actress, and she elevates the scenes that she's in just with her smile and the way that she presents herself. I heard she got a part in a movie when somebody, like if you were Miss America, what would be your skill? And she, I guess, played a cockroach. And they thought that was funny, and so they, I guess, hired her on, for that role. She just has a unique quality, one of those unique qualities that I like a lot. I agree. The coach is a little overboard, a little bit too much. They should have done a better job of well-rounding the coach. He just seems to be a bully, and that's all they made him out to be. He doesn't show any capabilities of being a good head coach, and they needed to show that he was at least a good head coach that could get away with this. So there are problems with this movie. I think he could have been one of the writers in this movie, but I think they needed to bring outside help to elevate the script a little bit more. But again, I do enjoy it. I think the basketball sequences are good. I think the last game is really good to watch. I like how it's wrapped up. I like that he lets the coach know what he can do with the scholarship. I like that. So for me, this movie is a solid B.
All right. Well, solid B from Ken. I kind of expected that, so I guess that's 1-on-1. What's the next movie we're going to be doing here in our March Madness series?
We're going to do the movie Hoosiers.
Hoosiers.
A real basketball movie.
Oh. From 1986, I believe, right?
Yes, Gene Hackman
Dennis Hopper
as Norman Dale.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper. Got some names in that one. All right. Hoosiers. Story of Indiana high school basketball. All right. I look forward to that one. Ted, where can they find us on the World Wide Web out there?
We can be found on Twitter at hookedon_movies. We can also be found on whatever podcast platform that you use, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, Anchor. And if you can, leave us a 5-star rating and review, because the more reviews we can rack up, maybe we can become Rotten Tomatoes certified.
He just wants to
And we
knock
can-
down one-on-one.
And
He
we
wants
can,
to-
Oh, yeah.
we can drive the score of one-on-one down to where it should be.
And Ken, we got a lot of great banter out there on Facebook. Some great comments and stories you've put out there.
Yes, join the discussion on Facebook, Hooked on Movies. Just go ahead and look us up and request to be part of the group, and we'll approve you, and you can be part of that discussion. We will love to have you.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode, folks. Thank you for listening. As always, I am not wearing any pants. Film at 11.
See you at the movies.
See you next time on Hooked on Movies.